Hello and welcome to The Stack. This week we're in Paris to speak with L'Etiquette's Marc Beaugé on their special issue about Japan, perfect reading for the summer. We also discuss dogs and culture with Bâtard's co-founder Thea Sanchez and Microsoft's new magazine, Signal. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. We start the show in Paris. I was there for a whirlwind tour of interesting guests, and of course, I wanted to meet Marc Beaugé at his office. He's the co-founder and editor-in-chief for great French menswear title L'Etiquette. He's also editor-at-large for Holiday magazine. For the summer, Marc decided to publish a special issue of L'Etiquette entirely dedicated to Japan. He tells me a bit more about it at his tranquil office in central Paris.
I like things that takes time to make. I think it's a proof of quality in a way. If things don't get built in a day, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and Etiquette takes time. I mean, we launched it like 7 years ago, and we have always sticked to our guns. We do what we do, and we improve it issue after issue. We get to talk to more and more powerful, well-known people, but we are not obsessed with celebrity. We get to work with brands we like more and more often, but we are not running after brands. We consider clothes to be a cultural object, as it's as significant to wear or to buy a piece of clothing than to buy a book or to go and watch a movie. That's what we tell. We are not our 2 feet inside the fashion circus. We may have 1 foot at some point, 0 at others, but never 2 in a way. So that's what we do. We make a cultural magazine about clothes, and we show ideas, how to dress, why, we tell stories. We do what I consider to be quality journalism. We interview people at length. We are not looking for buzz lines or punchlines. We are looking for stories, for intelligence, if I may say, maybe spirit also, maybe humor sometimes. We want something real. Clothes are made to be worn, and we want something real. And we are not obsessed by being one of the link inside that crazy fashion world. We look at it, and it's a good position to be in.
Marc, we're here talking during Paris Men's Fashion Week. How do you feel? I mean, are you obsessing about the shows, or as you said, it is a more measured approach?
You need to take the shows in. You need to go to some of them. I go less and less to shows because it takes time and because you can see things just as well on pictures, but we have people in the team going to see the shows. I look at every show's pictures. As I think in a passive way, it gets to me. It helps me understanding what is in, what is out, why. It also helps me, maybe rejecting some stuff and accepting other. So I look at it, but it's not my favorite week of the year. It may be one of my least liked week of the year because it's all a bit crazy and too quick. You go to see a collection and people have been working on it for 3 months, 6 months. But you are sat there and people are looking at their phone, might be looking at the clothes when the models come in, but not that much. They rush out of the shows. I mean, clothes are treated just like you would treat a car or soap or water. I mean, I don't, in a lot of the shows, I don't see the cultural value of the clothes. So it's not my favorite week.
Well, one thing for sure, Marc, you know that people still need to read in the summer. A lot of magazines sometimes forget about that. So there's a special title coming out and it's all about Japan. It's a country I adore. What a lovely combination, Japan and L'Etiquette. Tell us more.
The idea indeed exactly was to say we have an issue going out in April. We have an issue for winter in September. We can't move those dates. I mean, it matches the way people dress and the seasons. But what could we do the publication in a time when people have a lot of free time to read, where people are taking trains, are in the airports. I mean, it's always important when you create an object, a magazine, to think of how will it get into people's life. So doing something when people have time to read seems to be as a logical idea. So the idea was this, and it was also to make our first issue that would be totally mixed gender. So it would be an issue with women's and men's fashion in the same issue, in the same series of images. And Japan was also an object of fascination. We sell a lot of copies in Japan. When we recently did a pair of shoes with John Lobb, it got sold out very quickly, thanks in vast majority to buyers in Japan. So it was very logical, and we went there for 2 weeks. We got to talk to every people we reached out, because I think they knew l'Etiquette in a way or another. So it's a fascinating country in plenty of sense. I was surprised by the fact that everyone is clean. Everything is, I mean, obviously, France also people are clean mostly. But yeah, there is a cleanness to how they dress, how they look, how they think also about the way they dress. I'm looking at what sentence we could have at the beginning of the issue, and there is one I liked that I just read in an article we were finishing. And the girl says, "I'm nothing special. Like every Japanese people, I prepare my outfit on the night before." And to me, it's a funny sentence, almost nothing, but it still says a lot about the way Japan people approach clothing. They care. They want to look good, and they want to look good through the clothes. They want to look good through the way they talk. They want to look good through the objects that they may produce, build, make. So they care a lot about what they project. So there is a lot of stories based around that ideas in the magazine. We have shot people in the street. We have been going and see people making denims, obviously. We are talking tomorrow to Yohji Yamamoto. We have something about Miles Davis and his fascination for Japan fashion. We have a guide of Tokyo in collaboration with Popeye. It's pretty rare that you will have collaborations between magazines, and I was happy that we could do that with them. It's like the guide is made in association with Popeye, who gave us their addresses. And we have based fashion on 30 iconic pieces of Japanese fashion, from the pleats of Issey Miyake to the Gakuran jacket that the schoolboy will be wearing in Japan, to the Onitsuka Tiger sneakers. We shoot those pieces in still life, and we put them in life on models. That's how we treat the Japanese fashion. So I think it works.
As I said, I think Japan is very l'Etiquette in a way. First of all, I generally think, let's say, menswear. They use a lot of vintage pieces, for example. The vintage shops are amazing there.
Yeah, the vintage shop are definitely the best ones, basically, because when you are into American vintage, they are almost as good, maybe better than the American shop themselves. Even when you look at French vintage, French old workwear, you can see the Japanese buyers in the countryside nowadays outside of Paris. So yeah, they are very good at it, and you can find many gems. It's expensive. They don't have a Japan vintage, strangely, and we try and answer that question. Why are not they fascinated by old kimonos? But not really. They are very curious about what America, Europe, France produced. So yeah, it's a vintage mecca, definitely.
And Marc, the l'Etiquette world is getting busier. Of course, we have l'Etiquette Femme as well, which has been published for a few issues now. You have collaborations with a l'Etiquette perfume. So it's a nice expansion, perhaps, as you said, an organic one.
It's a very organic one. We have never made any, money rising at some point. All the money that we use to make magazines, to send journalists for 10 days in Japan, is the money we have created. So nowadays we do the magazines, the podcast, all the content that we do. That's our media part. We also have clients we work with as an agency. We produce content for a few brands that are our clients. And we also have nowadays, once every season, so twice a year, a product launch. that we do with brands we like. We did the perfume with Horace, we did some jeans with APC. We are doing a pair of shoes in 2026 with Weston, which is a nice one for us as French people on admirers of Weston, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I don't have an obsession with growing. I mean, people are quite often willing to grow very quick. I find that there is things have got a size, and me being able to come in the office, talk to people, take a coffee with our 5, 6, 7 people working with us is an idea that I like, and I can see it being the right size. I'm not being obsessed with becoming 15, 20, 35, 50. I mean, I don't see it as a target. Being 8 and being all happy, being 8 people doing a good product, it seems to me as a very good plan.
And you're here in a very peaceful island here in Paris. We're talking here from your new office.
Yeah, we moved in a few months back, not long ago. It's so quiet. I mean, it's of course the neighborhood is quite lively. The other day we had, which was quite fun, we had Tyler, the creator. He came in. He's a fan of the magazine, and he sent us an Instagram message, and he said, "Can I come and visit the office?" I said, "Yeah, it's small, but come." And all the team came because we all like him as an artist, and he was there for 2 hours, and we talked, fashion, clothes, music. We went and see his gig the day before. No, it's a nice place, very chill.
And if I may ask Marc as well, another magazine that you're involved in, you're a contributor and editor-at-large at Holiday magazine, which I love. I mean, everybody that I speak love it as well. The attention to detail, of course, is very close to Monocle's heart. And the latest issue is all about Zurich. How do you divide your time with Holiday?
Holiday, I was very in hands for the 8, 9 first years. Copywriting everything, editing. For a few months, I've taken a seat further away from the daily work. We have a team that is great with François Blais, Christopher Niquet. It's now in their hands. I help. I provide phone numbers when I can. I provide IDs when I can, when I have some. It's good. Also, so good to know that when you do a lot of things, it's difficult to not to give up, but to take a seat further away from the action, and to be at ease with the fact that you can't do everything and that people will be just as good as you, maybe better. So yeah, it's good to be still in the loops, to talk to Frank, to talk to François. With L'Etiquette, I'm in hands. Every word I read, and I print the papers, and I take my pen and I correct and I move the pictures. So it's a very artisanal thing. With Holidays, it has evolved into, after a few years, into a human thing, into a friendship thing, into, do you have an idea for me? And can you think of something? Do you have a writer we can set somewhere? What do you think of? So it's like being a consultant for a very good magazine that is in safe hands, that is well made, that's beautiful, that has got a form of dignity that I find important.
Thank you, Marc Beaugé, as always. And if you want to buy their Japan issue, go to l'etiquette.com. And now to a really interesting new magazine. It's called Signal, Microsoft new print magazine. As soon as I came across the story, I knew I had to feature it in the Stack. Designed by the slow journalism company, Stack listeners will know then, Rob Orchard from Delayed Gratification, the magazine is an exciting and unexpected launch from a tech company. I had the pleasure to speak with the title's executive editor, Steve Clayton, who is also vice president of communications strategy at Microsoft. We discussed the reasons why Microsoft turned to print and what can you expect to find inside the magazine.
I spent 13 years working for Microsoft in the UK and moved to Seattle about 15 years ago. And my role at one time, I had the curious job title of chief storyteller, but that's really what I do at the company, is help the company to tell stories through things like magazines, but also we run a website called Microsoft Source that is staffed by a group of mainly ex-journalists. And so we spend a lot of our time, I spend a lot of my time thinking about how do we tell the story of Microsoft and what we do in a compelling way to lots of different audiences.
And I think one of the ways to tell the story of Microsoft could be in print as well, which I think is fascinating and brave, for Microsoft, which people knows, of course, is a tech company. So tell us about, before you talk a little bit more about Signal, tell us about that idea. Where did you start thinking, saying, you know what, actually a print product could represent us in an interesting way for people?
The inspiration came from a few different things, but the name of the magazine is a little bit sort of the giveaway of this. We wanted to try and create some signal, some distinct communications device in a very, busy, noisy, in particular digital environment. And that's really the intention, is to say, we have things that we want to say and communicate. And for all of us, our attention is under attack, and there's so much information that we can consume, much of it digital. It's very easy, obviously, to create digital content and put it out into the world. So the inspiration was just to say, let's do something that we think can cut through the noise. And then I would also say we took inspiration from a place that may surprise you. There was a great story in the New York Times at the back end of last year, and it was about Costco, the retailer, who actually is headquartered here in Seattle as well. The Times wrote a really great story about Costco's magazine, which they distribute to 14 million people a month. And we're certainly not trying to compete with Costco and their magazine. But I think that just caught our attention and our imagination of saying, hey, print is this thing that a lot of people, thankfully, still use and rely on and trust. And I think trust is a big part of it in a world where, trust is sort of under threat. How can we create a device that we can put our trusted voice out into the world in a different and hopefully meaningful way?
And that for me as well, Steve, when people talk about digital and print as if they need to be competitors, I don't think necessarily. And I think that example for Microsoft is the best one. A tech company who's doing a print title. And I think that both worlds, they can live together, right?
Yeah, very much so. And in fact, my team that is helping to now produce the magazine, we have a website that we run called Microsoft Source, and that is our digital news and storytelling platform, if you like. And literally over the last few weeks and months, we've been talking about how do we create this system that allows us, in the same way you do at Monocle, you sort of ebb and flow content between the magazine and between the digital properties and through the podcast and through newsletters. And so we're sort of looking at that and looking around at people who do it, brilliantly well, and saying, how do we bring the best of digital with the best of print?
In terms of stories, can you give us a taster, perhaps, what people can expect to find in the first issue of Signal?
Yeah, I think, maybe it's worth saying from an audience point of view, where really Signal is, maybe it's somewhat narrow. Our intended audience is, a business audience, not necessarily a C-suite audience, but that's certainly the C-suite is a little bit what we had in mind. We did a limited print run of this first edition and distributed it in particular to, business leaders at our customers. But what is in there is a wide variety of things, which is stories about our customers. There's a great story in there with Scott Petty, who's the CTO at Vodafone, and how they are applying AI to their business. There's a phenomenal story, I think, about the journey that Microsoft has been on for 20 years to build a quantum computer. There's an amazing story of a blind software engineer at Microsoft, a friend of mine called Saqib, who's been busy building technology for the last 10 years to help the blind and low vision community be able to interact with the world using digital technology. And so there's a set of feature stories, and I'm sort of learning the terminology of magazines as I learn about magazines here. So there's the well at the middle of the magazine that has all of these amazing feature stories. In this first edition, we're celebrating our 50-year anniversary as a company here at Microsoft. And so we've got a beautiful set of infographics and features around celebrating the 50-year anniversary. Probably my favorite thing in the magazine, if I could pick one, is we've got this beautiful periodic table of the products and services of Microsoft over those 50 years. And it would be remiss of me not to say, we have a great piece in there from Bill Gates, our co-founder.
I was going to say that.
Satya, and Satya Nadella, there's an interview with him. Satya is our CEO. And so it's, it's a rich set of stuff that we're incredibly proud of. And we've been getting good feedback, and we hope people enjoy it.
Well, so this is the first issue. Are you already planning, a second edition? And you said this one is very much business focused, and you're giving to certain customers. But perhaps are you thinking that you can sell this magazine or distribute in the shops as well, the Microsoft shops, or in other places as well?
Yeah, we're thinking all those things through. We're busy at work on edition 2 and edition 3, actually. We're going to do this a little bit in parallel. And so edition 2, we are hoping that we'll be out in November. We have a big conference in San Francisco that we intend to bring the magazine to. The third edition of the magazine, our intention is to bring that magazine to Davos, where Microsoft has long had a presence at Davos, and we have a physical space there. It's a great opportunity to distribute the magazine. We're not looking to sell the magazine. We're not looking to sell advertising in the magazine. We're thinking through our distribution of initially we are not looking, as I said earlier, we're certainly not looking to compete with Costco and distribute 14 million copies a month. So we're being, very sort of thoughtful and methodical about putting this thing out there, getting feedback from people, understanding what people like, what else they'd like to see in there. So we're taking a little bit slowly in terms of our distribution plans.
Well, and talking about slowly, I know who you chose as well to help out with the design of the title. The Slow Journalism Company, which of course they're friends here of the Stack. Rob Orchard have been a guest many times. So tell us about this collaboration. I think it really matches with your title.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to work with Rob and Marcus and Christian at Slow Journalism Company. I became familiar with their magazine, Delayed Gratification, probably 6 or 7 years ago. And as you know, they've been around for much longer than that. And it's just a magazine that I immediately loved and subscribed to. And I get it. It gets shipped to my home in Seattle, and I rip it open and I read it. I love the size of the magazine. I love the creative design of the magazine, but also the writing. Some of the writing in Signal is work that was contributed by Rob and by Marcus. We used some of our own writers as well. And they just have such expertise in creating beautiful things. And so I learned so much from them. They just do super, super work. And I'm really sort of proud of what we were able to do in a short space of time with those guys.
And one thing about the design, it really catches your eye every page. It doesn't matter, even if it's a difficult topic about business or quantum physics, it doesn't matter because, that's kind of the spotlights, the graphs, as you mentioned. I think that's a big, important part of a magazine as well.
I read a lot of magazines. I have a giant stack of magazines at home next to my armchair, and every Sunday I'll sit there and I'll make my way through my magazines. And it's a really wide variety of magazines. And so I think over the years have become to understand, but learned a lot from Rob and Marcus and team, what makes a great magazine. And, we very intentionally in Signal, at the front of the magazine, we have stuff that's quite light and easy to digest in a section that's called Rewind. And then at the back of the magazine, we have a section that's called Downtime, which is more of a lifestyle section. This first edition has a guide to Seattle and book recommendations, which is maybe not something you would typically expect in a business magazine. And then the middle of the magazine is, much deeper features, and then spread throughout the magazine are these very short, bite-sized Q&As. And so really, some of the feedback I've had, a friend of mine mailed me last week, and they said, I love that I can dip in and out of this magazine. They said it feels like something I just want to leave on my coffee table, and I can pick it up and I can have a long read if I want to, or I can just have a short, fun, digestible thing. And that, to me, is the essence of what makes a great magazine.
And don't you think that a magazine like that, even for the Microsoft customer, it does create a sense of connection as well with the brand? As you said, you can leave on your coffee table book and, read for a couple of days as well. So maybe they'll feel quite special reading Signal as well.
Yeah, my hope is that we could put this on a newsstand, and it would stand up both from a design but also a content and storytelling point of view to anything else that's on the newsstand. And so that's our ambition. I think we've taken a pretty good stab at that with edition 1, that it feels like a real magazine. And something else that I can't hesitate to mention is when I first received the copies of it here in Seattle, I ripped open the box, and the first thing I did was I held it up to my nose and I said, God, this smells like a magazine. That was really important to me because we have this physical interaction with print, right, that we don't have with our digital devices. Nobody ever held up their phone and smelt it and said, oh, this smells like a phone, or, grabbed the PC screen or the Mac screen and said, oh, this smells like a computer. But we have this very visceral physical connection with print that I really appreciate.
I agree. While you're talking about this, I was actually smelling the magazine that is in my hands right now. And it's so cool as well that I can see that you are a magazine lover because you buy a lot of magazines. So I was going to ask you actually your media consumption. Of course, we all have to check the news online, especially in today's world. But are you someone that you subscribe magazines, or you go to a newsstand and over the weekend I don't know, you flick through all your favorite titles. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, we have fewer newsstands here in Seattle than I would like. We had a great little store in my neighborhood that sadly closed down a year or so ago called Big Little News, and it was a phenomenal newsstand with titles from all around the world and all different varieties. But we still have a couple of places, really great places that sell magazines. But I subscribe to a wide variety of stuff that, Wired. I have every copy of Wired since 1991, the first time I read it at university in Loughborough. I read Monocle, obviously. I'm not saying that just because I'm here with you, but I have a huge stack of Monocle at home. I subscribe to Drift magazine because I love coffee. I subscribe to Rouleur magazine because I'm an avid cyclist. I subscribe to the New York Times for a Sunday sort of long read. That's my replacement for I used to be an avid reader of the Times of London when I lived there. I'm looking around my room. What other magazines do I have? A couple of car magazines. A friend of mine produces a magazine called Avance but I have a ton at home. Vanity Fair, we have all of the titles you might expect. New Yorker is a magazine I love. So kind of a very wide variety, because I like to sort of take in information from lots of different places and styles and themes, and then remix that hopefully into our own unique style for Signal.
Thank you, Steve Clayton from Microsoft. The first issue of Signal is out now. If you are interested to find out a bit more about it, email Dan at msftsignal@microsoft.com. And finally, the dog magazine we've been waiting for, Bâtard, a beautiful French title looking at all cultural aspects surrounding dogs. The quarterly title is hefty and beautifully designed. I spoke with co-founder and editor-in-chief Thea Sanchez at our Paris studio about their most recent issue and, of course, about her superstar dog too.
Bâtard is a quarterly magazine, so it issues every 3 months. When we talked about the editorial line, we were thinking to do something that we wanted to read when we first had our dogs with Emma. So it was really a way to bring together every subject that talks about dogs and to make people understand how dogs are really a part of our society. It's, in a way, a tribute to them to recognize the place that they have in our society and in our homes, in our hearts as well, and how it differentiated them from other animals. This is why it's called, Dogs and Culture, to emphasize how they are present in, science projects or movies or music. And so really to bring together all the subjects and then put it in one magazine that issues every quarter.
This is an obvious question, but were you always a dog lover? Did you always have this passion and knew you wanted to work with something related to dogs somehow?
Well, it was not something that we always loved dog with my partner, Emma. But it's not like we were little, because we've known each other for like maybe 34 years. We go way back with her.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a long story with her. We grew up together, and then we always known we wanted to work together, but we didn't say like when we were little, we want to work with dogs. We've always obviously loved animals and loved dogs. We had several growing up, but when we decided we want to create our own company and create our own magazine, we say, okay, what we are now passionate about and what is important to us. And she adopted her dog, and Marty, my dog, is...
Is that your dog on your T-shirt?
Exactly. It's actually our art director that made us a couple. Emma has one of those, and I have mine of Marty. I adopted Marty at the SPCA 5 years ago, and it was really important to us then to talk about them, because we were like, okay, we've talked about all the other things. We've worked in the movie industry, and we were, okay, now it's time to talk about something that we are really passionate about. And we landed pretty easily on dogs, actually. So yeah, it was kind of a long response to say that we have always been passionate about dogs, but we never, like when we were little, say, okay, we want to work on that area and that dog. Yeah.
The thing about Bâtard, the very strong imagery, very strong design, and I know, for example, there was an installation at Le Bon Marché earlier this year, and you guys made some T-shirts and some special kind of ephemera in a way. That's fantastic. Was that quite important for you as well? Not only to have an interesting magazine about dogs, but also to look great and quite unique.
Yeah, it's very important for us, because we've always say that we have an expression in French that say la forme sert le fond, So it was very important for us to have a very distinctive form to get people interested in our subject, because we are going to talk about something that are very difficult. And if we just do it like in black and white and without any something that would cut your eye, well, people will lose interest, and we have to get them interested in something. So, for example, it was very interesting because we had some feedback of some customers and some clients that say, okay, I'm not really interested in dogs, but I'm interested in design. And this is why I got the magazine in the first place, and then flipped it over. And then my eye got caught by some subject. And then I started reading and finding something that is interesting. So yeah, it was very, very important for us to have an editorial that was very strong, very interesting, and very thorough, but also a graphic design that was also be part of the process and part of the decision-making for every issue.
Yeah, because you certainly don't need to be like a massive dog lover to buy the magazine. I mean, it helps. It helps a lot. It really does. You shouldn't hate dogs, by the way.
Yeah, never.
Never. Issue 9 is out now, and the cover is beautiful. It is a Jack Russell, but it's a very poetic pose. Do you know the name of the dog?
Yeah, she's called Mila.
Mila.
Yeah. Every time for the cover, it's like a big discussion, because we want, for example, for the Jack Russell, it was very interesting because it has a dog reputation of being, very, very energetic, very, all over the place, jumping up and down and stuff. But we wanted to show another side, another aspect of that dog, saying, okay, it can also be very, very reflective, very, very, like with a beautiful pause, and just, so it's very, very important for us to not shoot the obvious and just catch the expression of a dog. And here it's like she's, doing the word and then thinking about, all right, what's going on in the world, what's going on in politics.
Quite philosophical.
Yeah, exactly. And then, very, very pause. Some people say she looks a little bit sad, but I don't agree.
I agree with you. I don't think she's just thinking.
Yeah, she's just thinking and just, reflecting on her life. And so it was, very, very interesting for us to capture the emotion. The eyes for us are very, very important. If you see in the issue number 8, it's like a bit sassy, like, okay, come here to me. It's very, she's very, very nice as well.
And listen, I do love Bâtard, and I think you have a great market here in France and other French-speaking countries. But do you ever consider the option of doing something in English? I mean, not that you need to, but I'm just thinking, because I haven't seen a title like this about dogs in other countries.
Actually, we've been thinking about it, but because for Bâtard, all of our inspiration were not some of the magazine that we can find in France. They were, overseas, mostly British, a couple of Italians magazine, but not really something that we could find in France. And we've been thinking about exporting and then translating in English. We are working on it, but for the editorial, there are some categories that are really based in French subjects. So we need to make it a bit more international. But yes, this is something that we're thinking about, obviously.
And, there's about 4 issues a year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite a lot. So what's the plan now? So are you already making issue 10?
Yeah.
Of course, you're not going to reveal the cover because that's top secret.
Yeah, sorry, I can't tell you that. No. But yeah, we're already working on issue number 10. We also working on some dossiers that are quite bigger, because we want to address some subjects that need more investigation. For example, because on the issue number 1, Bo, Emma's dog, was on the cover, and some of our customers and some of our friends and some of our family are asking, okay, when is Marty going to be on the cover? But Marty is a hunting dog. Well, hunting dog. I don't like this expression because they're not hunting dog, but they are used for hunting. And so we are going to have to talk about hunting for one of the issues, but we want to talk about it in really a thorough investigation, because it requires really interviews and so really dig up some really good subjects. So we are working on, some long-term subject that are going to be revealed at some point when we are ready for and comfortable with how we treat those. But yeah, we're working on also the number 10 and number 11.
Thank you, Thea Sanchez there. For more information on Bâtard, go to bâtard-magazine.fr. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Jack Dewars. Any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fp@monocle.com. Remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, subscribe to The Stack on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.